Okay, we're on air, and we're back for another panel discussion, Beer Analysis 101, and we're going to be looking at Guinness Draught this time out, or Guinness Draught, depending on where you come from and what your level of education is.
You're an animal.
So, depending on where you live in the world, Guinness Draught is going to be anywhere from 4.1 to 4.3% alcohol by volume. I assume we all have 4.2. Is that what we're all sort of sitting at here? Yep. It is a dry Irish stout or dry stout, depending on where you look. That's a sort of catch-all term these days for just a typical Irish stout, and as well one that has been infused with nitrogen. Increasingly popular thanks to Guinness. It's brewed by St. James Gate, also known as basically just Diageo, because Guinness essentially formed that company when they merged with another company. From Dublin, Ireland, they are the largest brewer of stout in the world. Last count from what I can see here on Wikipedia anyway, 82.9 million hectoliters, 50.7 million barrels a year. So there you go. I did look up ingredients for this beer. I saw them listed at least at Rate Beer. It's a best guess kind of thing. Anyway, pale ale malt, about 20 to 30% flake barley, and about 10% roasted barley, which is what gives Guinness its color and its signature taste. There's apparently no other grains or sugars added to this. Golding's hops is the hops generally used, although the dry Irish style, you're not really supposed to taste hops at all, apparently. And I think there's some speculation on whether they still sour a bit of the malt. Guinness has not confirmed or denied it, but they did used to do that. They're not quite. No one's quite sure if they still do it, apparently. But it was supposed to give Guinness its signature tangy kind of flavor or whatever. So there you go. Guinness was first established in 1759 by Arthur Guinness. He was brewing regular ales and stuff up until about the 1760s when he started brewing stouts and porters. We're not going to get into great detail on the stout or porter style because that would be just like a 2-hour fucking discussion panel on its own. But he first imported this to Great Britain in 1769. In 1959, Guinness changed its whole composition of its beer by adding nitrogen to it. So it basically changes the texture and flavor of Guinness. You got the smaller nitrogen bubbles. You get the cascade effect when you pour the beer into a glass. It's also known as the surge and settle effect. And because the nitrogen versions of this don't have the carbon dioxide, you don't have quite as an acidic taste to the nitrogen-infused versions of Guinness. They still also sell just regular CO2-infused versions as well. So I'll just mention really quick, they're basically their main versions of their beer. They have the Guinness Draught 4.1 to 4.3%, which is what we're doing today. They have the Guinness Original / Extra Stout at 5% ABV, which is their one without the nitrogen, and that's generally sold in the United States, Canada, and most of Europe. They have their Foreign Extra Stout, which is fairly well known. That's also without the nitrogen. It sits at 7.5% in most places. It's sold in Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, Asia, and the United States, and it ranges from 5 to about 8% depending on where you go in the world. And so there we go for that. We'll introduce the panel from my left to right. First off, we have Chad, the albino rhino. How you doing, sir?
Peachy keen, sir. Peachy keen.
Awesome. Next, we have Average Joseph. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Good, good. We have Greg Bylog. How you doing, sir?
A little grumpy because I got to pick up someone at the airport tonight and their flight's delayed. So a little grumpy.
Well, okay. Maybe you'll feel better by the end of the panel. Maybe it'll really jazz you up. Next, we have Chris, Laser Eyes himself. Lyzak, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Laser Eyes, that's fine. Thanks for having me. That's all I want to say.
All right.
Won't happen again.
Next, we have the Flying Frenchman himself, the Dirty French Wizard, Guy Lachance. How you doing, sir?
I'm not wearing any pants.
We already knew
Say
that. You didn't have to say
pants
it.
or pads?
No pants.
Next, we have Nick. How you doing, sir?
I'm not doing too bad. Thirsty.
Thirsty, yeah. And, of course, I'm your luscious, beautiful, amazing host, Lee Russell. There we go.
King of beer tube.
Yeah. So I think we can just, if we want to synchronize this, we can all sort of crack this fucker open and pour it in our glasses. So on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh God, it's gushing.
I was going to pour this down the side of the glass, but I said,
Yeah, this is
right
one of the
down the
ones
middle.
where this is one of the ones where it doesn't matter how the fuck you pour it.
Nope.
Oh boy, it all fits.
Thank the gods.
Down here.
That's what she said.
I was waiting for it. Good job.
Oh.
Made for a wine glass, indeed.
Yeah.
Mine's got something stuck in it.
Is that an ice cube in there?
It might be an ice
think it
cube.
might be.
I don't
Why-
know what that is. Is that? Yeah.
I had mine at the back of the fridge, so it might have ice.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
why is there?
Wait, hold on. Let me check if it's cold. No, it's not cold.
Well,
I don't think it's ice.
Ladies
Break it from the
watching, that
bottom.
could be you.
It must be a bad beer.
Before we get into it, though, did everyone take it out of the fridge right as it started, or a little bit beforehand, or what?
A little bit beforehand for me.
A little bit, maybe 15 minutes.
As we went online.
Yeah, about
Mine
half an
came
hour.
from your cooler at the liquor store about half an hour ago.
Okay, so we're all like kind of in the same place. All right.
All
It's settled already.
It settles.
Nice and
Yeah, it
quick.
settles.
Look at my
incredibly
ice
quick. Oh, nice.
Good job.
Round ice
monster.
cube.
Would you suck that out of the can?
Yeah, you
No,
probably
I
should put it in your
can.
mouth and cool down your palate. You know,
Open the
cleanse
can.
it.
Oh, nice.
All right. So I guess we can get right into sort of people's sort of history and their sort of general thoughts on this. So again, we'll start with the albino can crushing, ripping, tearing fellow over here. Start us off there, Chad.
In all honesty, I think this was probably my first beer that wasn't just a average lager. I remember having it with my buddy Glenn. It was his first beer when he turned 19. We went into an Irish pub. We ordered it. I don't remember liking it the very first time I had it. I loved the mouthfeel, the really silky smoothness of it, but I didn't like the taste at the time. Then I tried it again and again, and I ended up becoming more accustomed to it and not just the corn taste that lagers had at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, it really was the first thing that got me moving in another direction other than just going with lagers.
And what's your sort of general thoughts on it now compared to when you first had it, and sort of give your scores for style and just a beer overall?
You know, as a nitro dry Irish stout, it's probably my third favorite of the three that we can easily get, being this Irish, like the Irish stout, the Murphy's Irish Stout, sorry, and Mill Street Cobblestone. Of the three, this is probably my least favorite of the three, but I still like this. If I'm at a bar and all they have is a bunch of lagers and this, I'm ordering this. I would probably give it a 7 out of 10 overall, because that's what, you know, I would buy it. I just wouldn't go out of my way to get it. And then to style, probably worth about a 9 when you look at what an Irish stout is supposed to be.
Yeah. All right. Joseph.
The first time I had this beer was actually years before I actually first got into craft beer. And it was when they first released the widget in the States in the bottles,
Right.
you know, the ice cube in the bottle. And I remember drinking it, pouring it in a glass, drinking it straight from the bottle like a noob, because I certainly was. I had no idea. And I didn't like it because I didn't like beer and I knew nothing of it. Very ignorant to it. I remember giving away the last couple bottles to a friend because I didn't care for it. And then I revisited again when I started getting into craft beer about 8-9 years ago. And I like the nitro effect to it, but overall found it to be just kind of like bland overall. Like, I mean, a lot of people say it's drinkable, and it certainly is. The nitro adds that creaminess and smoothness to it, but as far as flavors go, it's all right. I mean, it's all right at best for me. But I see why a lot of people love it. Like, I totally get it. As far as rating goes, for me personally, probably a 6.5. Could easily drink it. Someone gave it to me. It was at a party, whatever. No problems taking it down. Wouldn't pay money for it, even though I just did. But I'd probably never do it outside of something like this because, I mean, I know what it brings to the table. There are better offerings. I agree with Chad. I think Murphy's is a superior product, although that would be cool for a future show to do like a side-by-side or head-to-head, because maybe it's not, and maybe it's just in my mind, but I feel like Murphy's is much better. And then as far as style goes, I'm kind of with Chad. If you look up what the style's supposed to be, dry Irish stout, this hits about 90% of what it's supposed to be. I don't think it's roasty enough to be like perfect in the style, but everything else hits the nail on the head, so I'd give it a 9. But like I said, for personal preference, like 6.5 at best. It's a good beer, but I don't really drink it all that often because I don't care to.
All right. And I'm not going to miss him this time. Greg, you're next.
I was wondering. All right. Well, this is pretty much going to echo everything that's already been said. But like every other non-Irish person, I used to drink it on St. Patrick's Day every once in a while when I went out with people, or I might buy a couple. This is before I was into craft beer, and I didn't like it all that much. I thought it was okay now and then. I usually just drank one and then would go to drink my Molson Canadian or Coors Light or whatever else garbage I was drinking after that. And then once I actually started into craft beer, I probably didn't actually drink this again till maybe a year to 2 years after I was into craft beer. So it was kind of just weird going back to it. And I used to think it was the strongest beer ever, and it was like drinking motor oil. I didn't quite like the taste all that much. Now I actually quite like the taste. It's bland, like Joe says, but it's kind of combined with the nice texture. It's kind of bland and smooth and goes down easy, and it's good. I don't drink a lot of dry Irish stouts. I'd have to go through my notes to actually see which other ones I've drank, and frankly, I don't prepare for this show like Lee does. So I like to be unprofessional like that. So I don't know how this compares style-wise. The ones I remember drinking taste similar. So sure, let's say it's a 9 out of 10 for style. We'll just throw that one out there. For me personally, it's an 8. I actually quite like this beer. It's a good go-to, and it's a good cheap beer if you say, hey, what's your favorite macro? And say, well, this is a pretty decent macro. So.
All right. Awesome. Chris?
With this Guinness, the first time I ever had it, I think, actually, it wasn't really that long ago, maybe about 4 years ago, I tried it. And somebody's like, hey, take a sip of this. And I said, okay. I was at some local bar. And I tried it, and I was like, this is gross. Because I didn't know what the fuck I was drinking, to be honest with you. And then they're like, all right, so a couple years pass, and then somebody says, do you want to do an Irish car bomb? And I said, okay, let's try one of those. So we dropped the Baileys in the Guinness, take a sip, and I was in love. Maybe it was the Baileys that did it for me. Maybe it was a mix of both. I don't know. And then recently, again, tried it one more time, and I fell in love with it. And I love it to this day still. Out of the 3 possible ways of actually purchasing Guinness, either on tap, bottle, or in the can, I prefer it in the can as opposed to on tap or in the bottle. Just a personal preference, I guess. Irish stout, sure. Style 9 out of 10. Why not? I wouldn't know the difference of one that wasn't a 9 out of 10, I guess. And personal preference, I love this stuff. You know, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. I love it. I love the feeling of this in my mouth. It's fantastic. Take it easy, Greg. Yeah, and I buy this all the time. If I'm at the grocery store and I need something fucking delicious to drink, I'm buying this every time.
So our friend Jamie, on one of these examinations, he did the sort of average score in the comments. I want to see him do it this time out as well, so we can see how much Chris skews the rest of everybody else's scores here.
Fanboys are welcome, as you can see.
Yes, they are.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, that's what I
Okay.
got.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. We'll move on now to Guy.
I think the first time I ever had it, I was in college and I had it at Grace O'Malley's, and I took one sip and I asked to return the beer. I just hated it. And then I think after probably heard the Guinness Gauntlet, I just went straight for it. And afterward, it just tasted like chocolate water ever since. I was like, oh, this is very, very light. At least having it now, I get the big chocolate, so I appreciate it a bit more since I don't have to chug 2 liters of it. So it's pretty good as is. I think I would give it a 6.9 both ways for style.
Both ways.
Beer. But if I want a nitrous stout, I'll go to Lower Town Brewery. That's my favorite one so far. Big ass chocolate. Theirs.
Okay, awesome. And Nicholas.
Well, Guinness. When it comes to me and Guinness, I've actually got a deep personal history with Guinness. First time I ever had it, actually, this was my my gateway beer into to better beer. I mean, before I ever had a Guinness, I actually didn't even like beer that much at all. I was surprised the first time I ever had a Guinness and drinking it and realizing there's other beers out there that, you know, that don't taste like liquid bread or piss. The first time I ever had a Guinness was St. Patrick's Day 2007, and when I was living in Calgary, and I bought like 4 cans of this stuff just to try and see if I liked it. And surprise, surprise, I actually really did. Over the years, without going into too much detail of like heart-to-heart stuff, my late fiance was a huge fan of this, and it was one of the things that we bonded over. So over the years, this has been a beer that's been like a staple of my fridge and a go-to that entire time. So I mean, no St. Patrick's Day goes by around with me without me having a can again. It's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Even if that's not considered true Irish or something. As far as the style overall, I got to say that for me, it's like an 8 or an 8.5. I'm a little torn. I give it a 4 out of 5 on my scale, but I kind of consider that like an A rating. So some people that would be a 9, whatever. It's a high rating. It'd be like, I'm going to give it an 8 just for shits and giggles. But because I just really like it. It's very smooth. It's easy to drink. It's got a nice little bit of a chocolatey finish. It's goes down super easy, and I can crush a few cans of this in one night without much issue. As far as the style goes, I'm going to give it a 7. Just because I think when it comes to the style of Irish Dry, there's other beers out there that do it maybe a bit better, a bit more flavorful, like Murphy's or Cobblestone. But overall, it's a great beer, and one of my favorite things about it is, of course, the way that it's packaged. I mean, it's one of the original beers to actually, at least one of the first beers, if not the first beer that we've had around here that has the nitro widget in the can, and one of the ones that really kind of pioneered having that in the can as part of the style. And also the level of detail that they put into their presentation. If you've ever had it on tap from one of those special Guinness pouring systems where they keep the keg refrigerated at a specific temperature, keep the lines filled, and have the special tap handle so it pours correctly into the Guinness certified glasses they ever have. There's one place in St. John here that actually does it for the full Guinness pour that way, and it's actually quite an experience. And that's absolutely my favorite way of having it, is on tap from that pour system. But fantastic beer, to be totally honest. I just love what they do with it, and there's nobody who really puts that effort into the entire packaging of their beer as any macro out there does.
Awesome. Yeah. It is true. They are probably one of the best marketed beers ever. Like, they have their branding down to just a perfection. And of course, they, like Innocent Done last week, they do sort of lend themselves to weird gimmicks every once in a while that just don't take, and they quietly disappear. And there's tons of variations of Guinness now, of just the regular stuff. Then there's all their expanded craft stuff that they do, craft quote unquote stuff that they do, and they even had a lineup of that in the '90s too, I believe, that they just sort of silently discontinued before they came back and tried to do it in the last few years again as well. For me, just like you say, Nick, it is sort of a gateway beer. I think a lot of us back in the day on BeerTube sort of talked about how this was like one of the first different beers, you know, slightly more high quality beers that sort of got us into just trying different stuff and leading to craft beer. So it is important in that regard for me. I don't think the taste or anything has changed since I last had it, and since I first had it as well. And we've never.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're consistent. They're incredibly consistent. And I think as our palates have changed over the years, we've probably come to realize that, yeah, it's not actually the thickest beer in the world. It's not super roasty. It's kind of got like a mild, very mild ashtray kind of roast at the back of it is what I'd kind of call it. And if you, yeah, and if you do taste it, like, again, I don't know if they still do sour some of the grain in the mash bill, but it does smell and taste. There is a slight sort of like that signature Guinness kind of tang there, a little bit, but
Stouty.
Super
quite
stout.
stouty, very stouty. But yeah, it's nice. It could be more flavorful. I totally agree there. If I was going to rate it to style, I would probably, honestly, I'd sit it at about a 7 for me for style. Like you guys have said, there are more flavorful versions of this sort of thing out there. Murphy's, for one, comes right to mind. I pick up a lot more from Murphy's, and even then, that's not a super exciting beer or anything like that, but it still brings a lot more to the table as far as the style goes. And for personal enjoyment, I'm not going to give it a perfect score like I did like the first year of beer tubing, where I gave it a 5 out of 5. How young and naive I was back then. But
it was a gateway, right? So
yeah, but I'll sit at about a 6 is probably where I'd sit for just personal enjoyment. And I mean, it's easy to throw back. It's easy to enjoy if you like these sort of flavors. And what does the beer master say, Nick? Just get into it.
Alrighty, so gave it it gives it a score of 89. Type ale, style dry stout. Hey, got that part right. Alcohol by volume 4.2 according to the beer master, which is actually what my can says. That's the review say. I didn't know it made sound effects like that. Actually, I didn't even. What is it doing?
Where does your guys say the ABV on it? I'm curious.
Way to be prepared, Nick.
Can.
Where?
Right at the
Bottom
bottom.
of the can. Bottom.
Got to read it as it goes across the screen. North American bottle.
Mine does not.
Oh, filtered coffee appearance, pours with a creamy white head. Follows. Was it? Subtle burnt grain and chocolate aromas follow through on a very smooth and creamy medium-bodied palate. Gentle burnt grain and subtle bitter hops on the finish. It does actually taste creamier when drunk straight from the bottle as the makers intend.
Okay, so they were talking about the widget bottle version, eh?
The widget bottle, which I
listed in the thing.
Which I did experience both pouring it in a glass and drinking it back then. And for me back then, it didn't matter. But I didn't notice like a creaminess more so out of the bottle when they released those. So
they don't have the widget in the bottles anymore.
I stopped drinking bottles and they stopped putting widgets in.
Yeah. And somebody choked on one.
That's on them.
Yeah. So before we get to listener viewer comments, any of you guys have any sort of final thoughts they want to put up for this?
I was a little disappointed with St. James Gate, with Diageo in general, when they had the few vegans go out on Twitter and force them to stop using isinglass.
Oh yeah, the fish bladder shit.
Yeah.
God. So they don't do that anymore?
No, they don't use isinglass for filtration anymore.
I will say that I think the difference people get with the when it comes to the body, we all talked about how it's once you become seasoned in any kind of beer, not even craft beer, you understand the differences in body. You can tell. And when you first drink this and you are just a macro guy drinking lagers, I see how it kind of drinks like motor oil or very thick. but it's all the nitro giving you that creaminess, that smoothness. When you sit there and actually drink it and get through the head and get through that, you realize how watery this beer really is. It's kind of mind-blowing that at any point in time we thought that it was like a viscous beer, because it's really not.
Take a sip and keep it in your mouth for a bit. You'll realize how thin it really is.
And one curious thing also too that people talk, a lot of people craft beer, they watch their calories and whatnot. For 12 ounces, 12 fluid ounces, 125 calories. It's one of the lesser full-bodied, but not really full-bodied, but like normal craft beers that you can get that doesn't have a lot of calories.
And years ago, like 30, 40 years ago, it was prescribed for pregnant women to drink it because of the high iron content.
Still a good idea, I think.
Yeah, now they make no claims anymore of its natural health benefits.
But I think this panel can recommend it.
Yeah, I'm the experts on this panel, which 0 of us are. But take it from us, drink this instead of water on a regular basis, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, listen, all you knocked up broads, you start shooting this stuff down.
Are those the want to get knocked up?
Now, something that I don't think a lot of people realize with nitrogen beers is the beer is actually carbonated. And when you open it, the sound you're hearing is the nitrogen forcing all the carbonation out of the beer.
Yeah.
Which is really a cool thing, too.
It is.
I mean, that's sound much more dramatic.
That's the one thing that I will say about this beer is, even though for me, like it doesn't have a lot of flavor, the fact that it is nitro and the mouthfeel is amazing makes up for it, because the drinking experience goes up because of that. If I had to rate this based on just taste alone, this would probably be like a 5, maybe even a sub 5. But nitro makes it much better, right, Chris?
It's about 2 steps. It's about 2 steps above Boddington's. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it has a different color, a little bit more roastiness and a little bit of chocolate, but at the same time, it's like, just because it has the nitro, it just gives you the sensation of, holy shit, I'm drinking a milkshake, basically. And who doesn't want to drink a milkshake unless you're being lactose intolerant?
I love that I love the feeling of the nitro beers, but I mean, even one of Diageo's other beers, Kilkenny, I'd rather drink this over Kilkenny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Kilkenny's kind of bland as well. It doesn't quite work, but
then again, the vast majority of us prefer stouts and porters to just generic ales and red ales and things like that. So you're gonna
all the other ales in your country,
and barley wines and everything.
Yeah,
potato beers.
Anyone else have any other final thoughts before we get on the listener comments?
I do love the half and half.
Your comments?
The black and tan. I really like that.
Oh yeah.
Final thought for me. I don't know. Between this and Cobblestone Stout, I kind of like Guinness better for my own personal preference. I haven't had. What was the other one you guys called?
Left Hand Milk Stout you've had, but
not that one. No, I'm talking about the other one you guys mentioned already. Murphy's. Yeah, I've never had Murphy's. Nope. And I will look for it whenever I can find it, and I will try it and then make my judgment on that one. But yeah,
we should be doing Murphy's at some point as well, I think. And at least
can't find it here.
Yeah, well, and for someone who does enjoy nitro beers for the most part, I think that would be the logical next step for you.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if I've ever had Murphy's before. Again, I'd have to look it up.
Oh, that left-hand nitro, though.
Milk
right?
Stout, a little different, but it's fantastic. It's in cans now.
It's good.
Oh, it's in cans now? Oh, I'm so coming over.
Easier to ship cans, Joe.
Oh, yeah, well, tonight you, though.
Working on it.
Okay, so we'll get to the comments now. Jace Westcott says he's drinking a 500 milliliter can of Guinness Draught. Can't really add anything that hasn't already been said. I rate it a 7 out of 10 for personal taste and a 9 out of 10 for style. Good on tap, and he loves Guinness bread.
2 thumbs up. Jody style.
Yeah, there are other Guinness products. Like you can get all kinds of. Like I said, they brand themselves.
They have the
well.
chips. They have the chips too, like the kettle cooked chips.
Oh, and they have chocolate bars.
Anybody ever have Guinness cheese?
Mm-hmm.
No? Nope.
Yes, cheese.
Peach.
Malted Montreal says he's drinking a Laboriel Stout. Best stout on the market, in my humble opinion, is Le Castor. I don't know either of those. Raining on Your Parade says seems a little fuller in body than I remember. Not as roasty. It's tasting real good, but I have a Murphy's in the fridge. Cheers. There you go.
I'm glad he's drinking it. Good. Excellent.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Love it when the audience is drinking what we're drinking. That's the whole idea, right?
Ewart also says hello. 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb up, whatever. It's all the same.
Yeah, there we go. Malted Montreal asks, Guy, have you ever had Young's Chocolate Stout?
The double one, yeah.
Yeah.
Long time
I
ago.
would say-
I remember that being really light back then.
It still is.
Jace Westcott said his beer store ran out of this, so he had to pick this up at an LCBO.
Wow.
Monster.
That's
crazy.
Jamie Basement Jamie Basement Beer Review says, I honestly don't love the taste of Guinness, but I really like the presentation branding. On taste alone, which is quite important, I give it a 6 out of 10. Jace Westcott says, I wish I got the nitro version of Young's Double Chocolate Stout instead of the bottle.
There's a nitro version?
Yeah, usually it's on
Yeah.
tap only in
You
Canada.
know, but I
Oh.
don't. Yeah, we
They
get them
used to
here.
have it at
Ooh.
They used to have it at the Kilton Clover.
We get it here,
Okay.
but like almost every other nitro beer, it takes away from the flavor. So I mean, all depends on what you want.
Malted Montreal says he gives it a 7 out of 10. I assume that he's talking about Young's there. Jace Westcott says perfect 88. And Basement Beer
Fair
Review
enough.
says Jace is an entrepreneur.
Yes,
There you
it is.
go.
I just want to put out there for Mr. Lysak, who said he couldn't get Murphy's. There's 160 cans at the Lundy's Lane beer store.
That's on Chris.
I'm in.
There you go. It's on you,
Okay,
Chris.
fair enough.
And Basement
See
Beer
you
Review
later.
says
I'm just
it's
kidding.
nice that at least Guy dressed professionally for this panel.
Guy's
Good
always
job,
one step ahead of us. He is French.
It's nice that Guy dressed at all.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he stood up to show you. Maybe not, Jamie. Maybe
Only
not.
half and half. Black and tan.
The man's guarding a package.
50-50.
Indeed.
So unless anyone has anything else to say, I should probably fucking
Oh,
Oh,
language.
shit.
just mention the formats. I forgot to mention the formats I can get at the NSLC anyway. You can get 8. My cans, by the way, were all 440s. That's the one I can get. I know I think there are 500 milliliter cans out there, but we get
Right
the
here.
440s. Yeah, so we can get 8 an 8-can pack for $25, or a 4-can pack for $13, or you can get the Irish Discovery beer pack, where you get 2 440 cans with 6 other cans, 3 other beers: Kilkenny, Smithwick's, and Harp, for $24.49. If you want to do that.
Nice. Today when I went to the LCBO, cans were on sale, or you could buy the 4-pack and pay more money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a 4-pack of 440s is $11.95, and a single 500 is $2.75.
Yeah. We used to be able to buy singles, but they won't let us do it anymore. Too many other good beers on the.
And then if you
single
were
shelf now.
doing it in bottles, a 6-pack is $13.95, and a 2-4 is $44.95.
I bought this one as a single, but it's a 440. It's not a 500.
It probably
Weird.
was just a 4-pack that was ripped open, because then they'll just throw them in the single bucket.
Pastor, I bet they charged me a 500 price for it too.
When
They
they bring
probably
them in, they can sell the 4-packs as singles. I mean, you can buy them in a 4-pack, but you're paying 4 times the bottle price of a $3.85 each.
Okay, so
American wise, because I'm here it's American, unfortunately. This comes in 14.9 fluid ounces, which is a 440. It was $1.99 for the can, and I believe a 4-pack was $6.99. Also, unlike your guys' version, there is absolutely no
That's gonna be-
ABV on the can anywhere whatsoever.
That's gonna be
Oh,
fucking
why would you wanna know that?
$8.50 Canadian for that 4-pack. That's brutal.
damn.
Screw you,
That's
USA.
so very few import beers he gets for less than we do.
Mhm. Exactly.
We're gonna close
I
out
apologize.
now. There's one last comment from Jace Westcott that I'm not going to read because we're a professional panel. We can say those things on Chad's show, but we can't say them here.
Save the comment for later.
But we do agree with it, whatever it is.
Yeah, so
I agree with it.
yeah, we do agree with it. Chris Peters did do that to that number of
Some
those
things.
people in the human race. Yes. So there we go. We're going to close out. Next week might potentially be Oktoberfest from Sam Adams or Murphy's. Who knows?
Oh,
We'll see what we do. We'll come up with something. The Macho Man will let you guys know.
It's going to be actually craft though, I believe, right? Alternating. So next week should be craft.
oh yeah.
So-
We got to go craft. We got to find something.
Yeah.
that we can all
Yeah,
get.
so we're going to cut out. Thank you, everyone, for watching and leaving comments, and we'll see you guys all next week. Goodbye.
Also Canadian.
Thanks, guys.